God.
Oh, I saw that, yes.
They shot her in the leg.
See the moment there, Lauren Tomasi was reporting live when, without warning, an officer behind her raised a weapon and
Jesus. Not great. What are you doing?
he's protesting.
Hey.
Sorry for keeping you.
Don't ever apologize to me. You're the
Well,
mayor.
one of
I
our,
appreciate your time.
yeah, one of
I
our
just met you.
council members was struggling.
I hear you. I'm sorry. Are they okay?
Yeah, they were just, the ones that have to deal with the brunt of this.
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
hard.
And they're conflicted
Yeah.
because, they support the protest and there's all these vandals. They kind of don't know what to do with that. So
But I can't.
that's my job,
I know.
is to make them feel comfortable.
I hear you.
That's what we
I
do.
just keep thinking about the fact that,
Right, 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 right.
I just met your chief of staff.
Oh, you did? You
Okay,
want me
let's do
seated
this.
or standing? Or
Yeah,
standing?
stand. You know Sean, right?
I do.
Of course. Okay, I'm gonna have
You
you
made this one?
Right there.
I was gonna kind of be like, here, give me a, does that work, Sean?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, Zach. So when we look at what happened last night in our city, yesterday afternoon, last night, who's to blame for that?
Well, I just have to say, dial back time to Thursday. None of this needed to happen. Why did we need to have raids here? It was very clear that if raids happened here, that the community was going to respond in a very negative way. I tried to make that case. Unfortunately, I didn't succeed. I was very hopeful that we would not have, that the federal government would not have deployed the National Guard. But anyway, I think it's important, period, that peaceful protest is a part of our American tradition. When it results to violence, it will be addressed as though it is violence. People will be arrested and they will be held accountable.
You said Thursday. Did you mean Friday?
No, I meant Thursday, meaning before the raid. The raid happened on Friday. Everything was fine in this city. Just think about that. We weren't having problems with protests. There were no problems with violence. The raids happened on Friday, and in response to especially the arrest of David Huerta, one of the most respected labor leaders that we have in the city, him being injured, going to a hospital.
Still in federal custody.
Yes, he's still in federal custody. If I understand it right, his arraignment is today. But all of that creates fear and tension in our city. And we have to think about the families on Friday, 3 different workplaces where raids took place. Many of those family members have not been in contact with their relatives. They don't know where their relatives are still here. Are they in Southern California? Have they been shipped to a country that maybe they don't even know? And so the instability that creates. And we went through this before in the last administration, the last Trump administration.
Have you spoken to President Trump? Have you spoken directly to the administration?
I have spoken directly to the administration. I have not spoken to President Trump. I might reach out to him in the next few days.
Have they been responsive to you explaining why this isn't going to work in the city of Los Angeles and that, as we're seeing, the city is going to resist this?
Well, I felt, first of all, that they were accessible, that they were responsive. However, the National Guard came anyway.
But about the National Guard, Trump has promised 2,000 members.
Right.
I heard yesterday there was about 300.
Right.
You're still feeling as though the National Guard, Trump calling the National Guard, that's what's responsible for yesterday? Because
No. I'm saying Friday is what was responsible for yesterday. This was a buildup. Our city was peaceful before the raids took place. So you are correct. He called for 2,000 soldiers. There's 200 in the city of Los Angeles and another 100 in the adjacent city of Paramount.
But let's talk about what we saw yesterday
Right.
and then in the afternoon and then into the evening. Some really ugly scenes, vandalism, violence in our city. Do you blame President Trump for that?
No, well, let me just be clear. I blame the people that were creating the violence. What happened last night was absolutely unacceptable, period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. If you support the rights of immigrants to reside here lawfully, then you don't go around vandalizing the city. And so to me, if that's really what you believe in, you would not be out doing what took place last night.
But I also know that you want to send the message that what we saw in downtown last night is in downtown. It's not a citywide situation. What do you want to say about that?
Well, first of all, it's not even all of downtown. This is isolated to a few streets, 5 or 10 streets. This is not citywide civil unrest like has happened in our city before. But if you watch the pictures, especially on national TV, you would think that the entire city has blown up into unrest, and this is just not true.
Republicans, President Trump, are using those images to say, we told you so, this is why we need the National Guard, some even threatening the Marines.
Well, the Marines are stationed nearby, and so we already have the military in our midst. But I really think we need to go back and look at norms and look at what policies and laws actually are, because I think the thing that is challenging in this administration is that you don't know where the line is. So if you're going to say that this is exactly why we need the National Guard, again, I'm going to go back to Thursday. Nothing was happening in this city.
It's hard to predict what happens next. We're hearing possibly 30 days of raids. What are you hearing, and how does this end? When does this end?
So let me just call your attention. Imagine what that means to families. Imagine how many adults are afraid to go to work because they don't know if they're going to be home to see their children, having no idea when and where these raids take place. You create this sense of fear and terror in a population that is just completely unnecessary. When the president came in, he talked about arresting violent criminals. He talked about drug dens. He didn't talk about Home Depot. And so really, day laborer centers at Home Depot where people are just trying to work and make a living, we're going to raid that? That's not what
people in danger. This wasn't the case on Saturday or Sunday morning. This was not inevitable. We'll never know what might have been had the president left our state and local authorities to continue the important work they were already doing and were more than capable of doing. What we do know is that what we saw yesterday happened after the president's unnecessary, counterproductive, and, most importantly, unlawful order. An order that abused the federal government's authority and violated the 10th Amendment and federal law. An order that skipped over multiple rational, common sense, strategic steps that should have been deployed to quell unrest and prevent escalation. As a result, I, in partnership with Governor Gavin Newsom, are suing President Trump and asking the court to set aside the president's unlawful action federalizing the California National Guard. With this order, Trump and Hegseth ignored law enforcement's expertise and guidance and trampled over our state's, California's, sovereignty. They unlawfully invoked a law that's intended to prevent an invasion by a foreign nation or a rebellion, or local and state law enforcement make it so that the laws of the United States cannot be executed. Those are the only three triggers that would provide for the invocation of the National Guard, and none of them were present here. A law that's only been used.